Happy holidays, everybody.
Hooty-hoo!
Welcome to another rock and roll confessional episode.
I'm Rita Wild.
I'm C.W. West. Tell us about this episode, Reed.
It's a good one because we had so much fantastic response to the first part of our interview with Mark and Brian. They, of course, were a tremendous morning show here in Los Angeles. They had their own national network television show. They were also syndicated their morning show to places like Portland and Albuquerque and Tucson and all up and down the coast. And they recently were inducted into the Radio Hall of Fame after being on the air together at 95.5 KLOS for over 25 years. This part of the episode 2 with Mark and Brian, they talk about some of their favorite interviews, also conversations that really gripped them and endeared them to the listening audience. What they've been doing since quarantine, because they're not doing radio shows together. But there's some good stuff, some fun stuff. We had some good laughs.
We did. And they also talk about how important it is to be throwing rocks in the back,
yes.
in the back of the building. Why that was such an important part of their life, but they do talk about that.
That is true.
So here we go with part 2 of our interview with Mark Thompson Brian Phelps, better known as Mark and Brian.
We have a couple of questions from Patreon listeners that
from what?
Patreon listeners,
our supporters, our listeners,
our subscribers.
Awesome.
Mike wanted to know, what interview are you most proud of?
Most proud of?
Yeah.
There's not one. There's just, I'll open that up. There's not one that I'm most proud of, but Johnny Cash.
Oh God. Yeah.
Johnny Cash. I was raised with Johnny Cash. My mom was a shit kicker. And so I didn't really like country music, but I loved Johnny Cash. I knew every word. I just loved the guy. So Johnny Cash is coming in on our show and I'm freaking out. And sometimes when you have somebody that I love so much come on the show, I started to worry because I wanted them to be the person I want them to be, that I see them being. I don't want them to be an asshole. I don't want them to be, I want them to be kind and that person I think they are. Well, Johnny Cash came in wearing black, big collar, hair perfect. He came in and he was getting up there at this point, and he was exactly who I'd hoped he'd be. He was generous in the interview. He was kind. He was funny. He was open. He took calls. I asked him during a commercial break. Rita, you know the story, but I asked him during a commercial break, Johnny, my mother is your biggest fan. And my father always said that if she had the chance, she'd leave my dad for you. And would you mind if on the air we called my mom? She doesn't know we're calling. Would you mind if we call my mom just so she could talk to you? And his response was this: well, I'd be honored, Brian. I'd be honored. Okay. We come out of the commercial break. I explained to the listeners what we're about to do. I call my mom. Now, I have done a Johnny Cash badly, but I've done a Johnny Cash imitation since I played in bands. I did a kind of a band in between sets. I would go up as Johnny Cash a bit. And so my mom's heard Johnny Cash, right? And we had called my mom in the past and kind of had fun with her as well. So phone rings, mom answers. Mom, it's Brian and Mark's here. We're on the air. How are you? Oh, hi, Brian. How you doing? How's the show going? Oh, Mom, it's great. And I am hyperventilating right now, Mom, because I can't believe I'm about to say what I'm about to say. Zelma Phelps, I'd like you to meet Mr. Johnny Cash. And Johnny leans into the mic and he goes, hello, Zelma.
Yeah.
My mom's response was, oh, Bri. Bri, cut that out. You're making fun of me on the show. No, Mom, no, that actually is Johnny Cash, Mom. And Johnny was so patient. It took 2-3 minutes to try to convince her that it was actually Johnny Cash. The second she accepted that, the split second she realized she was talking to Johnny Cash, a voice came out of my mother that I had never heard my entire life growing up with her. Mm-hmm. She said this: well, hello, John.
I love
She
it.
was flirting with him. Oh, it was so great. That's my favorite interview. And I, as a Post-it note, I sent him a Hawaiian shirt because I was kind of joking around with him. You never see you in a Hawaiian shirt. That'd be kind of funny. I sent him a Hawaiian shirt, and I can go get it right now. But he wrote me on his stationery. God. He wrote me a handwritten long letter. Thank you. I love the shirt. I'm wearing it right now as I write this. I just want you to know how much I enjoyed speaking with your mother. He was that guy, handwritten, and it was sent to me within a week of that interview.
Wow.
That's one of my proudest possessions.
That's nice.
How about you, Mark?
I'll go. There's a question that I asked Tom Cruise that I was always proud of, but I'm not going to go there. I'm going to go to another thing. Brian may have forgotten this, but he'll remember it when I bring it up. Bill Clinton, he was the president, and he liked to jog. And it was brought up to our attention that he was jogging in San Diego because he was on vacation. So we're going to go. We got a motorhome, and we're going to broadcast from the beach where he had been seen jogging, and we're going to get him on the air. And so the quest, and we were talking about it every day for 2 weeks. How do we get him to talk to us? And finally, a listener called up, and he said, listen, I'm going to guarantee you that this will get him. I'm going to teach you a song of his college. I forget what it was, the alma mater. As he jogs by, sing it. He will come over. And so we liked the idea. He taught us, took us 2 days, and it only was 4 words, but we learned it. And there he was. We're doing the show. Here he comes. There's a lot of people jumping at him, and there was press, and we stood there and started singing that song. He had passed us. He stopped,
wow.
Turned and looked, and came over. And it was a second, but we got him on the air. And what I loved about it was that we would rent a motorhome and go to San Diego just to talk to that guy. But it was one of the things that we did, in that we talked incessantly about something that we were going to do in a week or 2 weeks. And we got the listeners involved, and it became a quest.
Yes.
And then by the time we got there, and keep in mind, it's a stupid show. It's a dumb idea. Motorhome, beach, Clinton, we're going to talk to him. But everybody had been listening to it, and they were invested. Will the song work? And it did. And I just loved the whole camaraderie of that moment.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like the guy that turned out to be the president of the United States. I think he was still running at that particular time. So that was amazing. Jimmy Carter, you had on the air.
Yeah.
President Jimmy
Twice.
Carter. I mean, think of all those people that you had. I mean, one of my going to music, Garth Brooks. Nobody was bigger in the music business at that time than Garth Brooks. He chose you guys' radio station to come on, and you had him sing a song that the listeners wrote. That was just insane.
My wife got married in a beauty salon. My wife got married to my sister. They met in a beauty salon. Yeah, we just kept taking phone calls, and each listener could add a line to it. And it became nonsensical. But when Garth was on, we did a break with him, and he was wonderful. And during the commercial break, we explained what we did. We wrote this song with our listeners. Each had a line, and he had his guitar. Would you mind singing it? And he goes, no problem. And I'll never forget it. He does this country western thing on the guitar, and he goes, well, my wife got married to my sister. They met in a beauty salon. Oh, guys. That was his response.
Just classic. Having the 2,000-year-old man, reenacted on your radio show. Oh my God. Just like all the legends that you interviewed. And, it's so difficult because, you don't
Is that the FCC?
Yeah. Or the IRS.
Sorry.
Somebody. Whatever.
Keeping a nice crossflow.
A nice crossflow.
Okay, Emma B. Here's a note from one of your fans. My brothers, I was so excited to hear that you finally won the What I Would Do to be Inducted into the Radio Hall of Fame contest. Honestly, I knew you could do it. But I have to ask you, how did you win? Was it the great band I assembled for your Christmas shows, or was it the time I played the Star-Spangled Banner, although I actually sucked at that one? Or was it the time Greg Bissonette, Kenny Lewis, and myself went door to door with you driving people crazy at 6 a.m.? Or was it my incredible bathrobe band for your day before Thanksgiving Day parade that pushed you into the winning column? I have to say, you guys were great also. Honestly, you have no idea how truly honored and thankful I am that you brought me into your world to be part of some of the most historic radio programming ever done. With you guys, radio isn't something you just listen to. You turned it into an experience. You truly deserve this one. Congratulations, my friends, on a job well done. Now let's get back to being old. Love you guys. Scotty Page.
Scotty Page. Oh, I love that man.
You guys did a lot of wacky stuff with him, and he was one that you could always call on, and he would be a part of your show.
Scotty,
yeah, I mean, he was in our many of our Christmas show house bands, and he was very much responsible for getting some of the biggest names in rock to be in our Christmas show house band. I mean, everybody loves Scotty, and he'd make a call, and there we go. We have Jeff Beccaro playing drums. We'd have all these incredible musicians, and Scotty Page was responsible for many of them. He's a great guy.
Brian was talking about how everybody loves Scotty. It's not hard. He is. I mean, obviously, he's Scotty Page. He is, at heart, a genuine, sweet heart of a person. And it's not hard to love him. And so, yeah, he opened a lot of doors for us. Great word, Scotty. Much appreciated. And you had everything to do with it. It was because of you that we're in.
Which we both said in our speech Thursday night.
Yes. Last week, 2 weeks ago, we had an interview with the Immediate Family, which is this great, like you saw Muscle Shoals, that documentary, the other documentary, The Working Crew. They're going to be working on one with these guys. And every one of them were saying, congratulations, Mark and Brian. I'm talking Russ Kunkel on drums. I'm talking Leland Sklar on bass. Danny Korchmar on guitar.
Waddy
Wattel. Those guys loved you, and they were so happy that you were getting the induction. So you touched a lot of lives and a lot of people.
Wow.
Rudy, you brought up, and I will back that up. I'm addicted to these documentaries of late because I've got the time. I've been watching quite a few. The Muscle Shoals documentary is amazing.
It is.
The documentary on the Wrecking Crew is amazing. But I got to tell you, the last time I was in Muscle Shoals with Linda, I took her around in the car because we had a day to kill, and I showed her the buildings where Fame Recording Studios used to be, Muscle Shoals Sound used to be.
Yeah.
And the thing that I would implore all of you is to go see the little bitty shack that was Muscle Shoals Sound. The Stones recorded, correct me, Rita, but I think it was Sticky Fingers in that little bitty building. And it's now empty. Which is kind of strange. Elton John, Rod Stewart, everybody recorded there in this little bitty dump of a building. But they always say, as Leonard Skinner's Sweet Home Alabama tells you, it was the Swampers. 4 country hick redneck musicians, 4. And individually, they weren't that good. But when they played together, it was crazy. And musicians came from all over to play with them. So these documentaries tell you that story. It's fantastic. Look up both of those, Wrecking Crew and Muscle Shoals Sound.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Let's do another Patreon question here. Chicago Denise wants to know what you guys have been doing during the pandemic. Have you picked up any new hobbies? What are you doing?
Well, if I would have known this was going to hit, I would have, because I wasn't in a relationship when it hit. But if I would have known, I would have gotten in one. I mean, I live alone, and I'm very, very COVID protocol conscious. I'm one of those people. And I got, seriously, I think I tweeted this. I got so sick of me living alone. I'm just so sick of me. And if I was actually considering kicking me out of the house so I could have some quality home alone time. But the human touch, I'm a very physical person anyway, but just going right to sex. It's official. I've seen everything on Netflix and Pornhub. I mean,
I thought you'd already accomplished that before.
You would think, but it just so. I do have a pod, a pod of people that are as careful as I am, And that's one of the reasons I love this studio I went to do the ceremony. They had a protocol in this building that was so great. Guy takes your temperature. You have to read something, everything. It smelled disinfect. I mean, that's the kind of place I felt safe with. And the only activity I get is exercise every day on the treadmill and in the gym. And then once, twice a week, I golf. Because I know you guys aren't golfers, but it's really the thing this guy who's very, very careful feels comfortable enough doing. I feel because you're outside, the protocol, the golf courses are all very, very, they're written in stone. And that's another activity that I've enjoyed. And I was doing TV. I started to do TV up until COVID hit. And then it's like, can't do this for a while anymore. So just been hanging.
Well, with COVID stuck around the house, I have learned that the word persistent is key. Because they always say, if you want something different, jerk off with your left hand. It's what I've been doing. And it's like, you're not very good at it the first time. Be persistent. Stay with it. You'll be amazed the layers that you can peel back by just working at it and getting better.
Wait a minute. I can't go with you there because, in fact, it pisses me off that you mentioned masturbation because you're married. You have someone there. She's got a great ass.
Brian, he didn't say whose left hand.
That's true. If you want the punani, you take the punani. You're so freaking lucky.
I know it's I kid.
Mark, I hear you've become a bit of an artist lately.
Oh, you talking about the cough?
No, artist.
No, the painting.
Oh, painting. Oh, God.
Coughing, painting, it's all the same. Just hawk it up onto the canvas.
Yeah. I'll tell you, for years, in fact, I discovered Bob Ross when I was doing my first morning show. I needed to nap and I couldn't sleep. And I discovered Bob Ross. This is years and years and years ago. He was on the local channel and I would watch him and he would put me out. And so years later, I needed to get to sleep. I would get my laptop and my headphones and watch Bob Ross make me sleepy. Well, somewhere along the way, I started really watching him. And so that I thought, well, I'm going to try it. I ordered the crap. I went in and I started doing what he did. And it's kind of funny. You do a painting and you go, the sky looks okay. The water looks okay, but what are those? And they're shrubs, but they don't look like his. And you start to work at it, you get better. And now I've moved on to some other stuff. The main thing I enjoy with painting is that it's a creative endeavor and it'll be as good as you make it. It's kind of like what Bill Parcells said about your record in the NFL. People were, we're better than the record. And Bill Parcells says, no, you are what your record says you are. You're as good a painter as that thing on the canvas. And I like to try to get better at it. Nobody will ever see it but me, and I enjoy it. So I'm doing that.
That's great.
And I mentioned this the other day, but one of the things I feel most guilty about is when Mark called, it was about 6-7 months ago and said, hey man, I'm into painting and I'd really like to start painting nudes. And would you come to North Carolina and pose for me? And I hadn't been around Mark in a while, and I thought maybe he took a turn somewhere, and he was enjoying other facets of life that I wasn't so much into. But so I turned him down. But maybe someday, Bud, I'll let you take a gander at my business.
It was a sad day when you turned me down.
Yeah.
It's going to have chocolate and nuts between the butt crack, though.
Guys, I can't tell you just how happy I am for you. You so deserve this. You certainly made an impression on my life, and you certainly changed my life, and you made me realize the importance of humor, because I was always such a serious person, but you made me laugh so many times. I'll never forget that, and I thank you so much for that. I got one more Patreon question from Laura from Long Beach. She wants to know, Styx tickets?
Yes. You can go to the show, but Styx won't be there.
The other question she had for you was, who was better at throwing rocks? Because you used to do that early on in the days. You go out in the back and throw rocks.
You know, I will tell you that, I mean, I grew up around water. My father bought a lake place, and I grew up throwing rocks at whatever target I could find. And I thought I was the king. We had a lot of things we would throw rocks at, but my personal favorite, and I think I speak for Brian, there was this, for some reason, the steel beam in between the building and this wall that was part of a building that housed some bit of machinery, but it was this steel beam, and we would throw at that. And it was a toss up. Certain days I was good. Other days Brian was good. Arlo sucked every day.
But we were when you hit the beam, we'd stand about 40 yards away and throw rocks, 30, 40 yards, we'd throw rocks. This is during the commercial breaks. When you hit the beam, because the beam was running actually through that wall into the building where the studio was, it would go, dong!
Yeah, it was really loud.
And after a few weeks of doing this, we were told, you can hear that on the air when the commercials are playing. If you listen really close, it's way in the background, but you hear this, dong!
Which made us throw even harder. And here's the thing. The beam, it was a construction, just like you've seen, a steel construction beam. Now, there was the analogy of taking the rock and throwing it right at it, like hard. There was, because you had more space, but there was a certain pride in the extremely difficult arch it and hit the top of the beam. If you did that, you were talked about in the building for the rest of the day.
Legendary.
Yes.
So we're going to take a quick break. And they were just talking about throwing rocks, and I didn't mention it in the interview, but I remember as we go out back, there was this huge, thick metal beam, and it was painted blue. And the closer to the center you got was more rust because it was where all the blue flakes had chipped off from everywhere that they had thrown the rock. So it kind of just spanned out like this brown that kind of faded out into blue on this beam. It was such a weird... It was really weird.
It's like when you're trying to pitch like off a mound, so they were really good at aiming and throwing and distance and trying to hit that perfect spot.
Right. Anyway, enough with the important things. Wait, no, we have even more important things than throwing rocks.
That's right.
Our Patreon rock stars, roadies, and groupies who we always love to give a shout out to. Thank you guys so much for your support. We really, really, really appreciate it. Every little pledge helps us. So if you are a rock geek or a Mark and Brian geek, like we are, of course, please go to our support tab on our website, rockandrollconfessional.rocks, ROCKS. Yes, it's a real website. Or directly to Patreon to make a small pledge. We are grateful for all of our supporters, and we thank you so much, up and down, backwards, forwards, left, right, in, out.
And now, time for a trivia question.
What do you got, Reitz?
Where they from?
Wow. Do you want to expand on that question? That was pretty. Okay, say it again.
Where they from?
Okay.
Where they were born. Where their hometown is.
All right. So, if you know that, you're better than I am. And if you don't, well, stay till the end because Rita's going to tell you her fabulous answers from her fabulous trivia question. Anyway, so now let's get back to our second half of part 2 of our interview with our dear friends Mark and Brian.
Got to ask real quick, so many great characters on your show. I wondered, with the election season, and then all the stuff that came down about the post offices and mail, I gotta ask how the Kutchu guy, how he's doing.
I did a little. I haven't seen him, but I did a little research because I was wondering what was up with the Kutchu guy, and believe it or not, he got a new job. He is now the speechwriter for the Trump campaign, which is kind of fits perfect, actually. So ought to work out great for him.
How about Bob the bad joke guy? You ever hear from him anymore?
Steve.
Yeah.
Steve.
Sorry, that is so funny. The things we threw on the air. No, but I'm sure if I did, he still hasn't learned how to tell a joke. So it's just what it is. And God, honestly, we don't do them right now but we live in a neighborhood, and whenever somebody new moves into this neighborhood, there's a party, and you go to these parties and you meet people that you don't know and you don't like, and you're standing there and you have to sit through a joke that in any normal situation would take 10 seconds to tell, and this person stretches it out for 3 minutes, and you're just standing there. Oh my God, just finish it. And that's the key with jokes. If you tell a joke, tell it as quickly as you can, hit all the beats and get out. Steve the bad joke guy never learned that.
Do you guys have favorite characters that you love to do?
Yeah, many.
What were some of yours, Brian?
Through the years, my favorites changed. But I loved any character that got Mark, tickled. And I loved doing characters that I could, I have the script in front of me, and I don't know what points I want to hit. But that just if the room is just really just kind of connecting with it, I love just going off script and doing that. But I love the Reverend Faircloth. One of my favorites is Elvis. I love doing that character. Yeah. I mean, I did Elvis. Oh, and by the way, Elvis.
Yeah,
I did a little research.
Yeah.
You want to know what's going on with him?
I'd love to
find him. Still alive.
He's not. No, obviously he went up to heaven. But what happened was he kept eating the clouds, or trying to eat the clouds, thinking they were marshmallows or whatever. So he got sent down to limbo. And this is what happened. Elvis Presley actually got stuck in limbo while stuck in limbo, because apparently when you're in limbo, they try to make it less tedious. And so they give you these games to play, the activities. And so he was playing the beach game Limbo, where you bend over backwards to get on the bar. His belly was a little too big. He got stuck underneath the bar, tried to karate chop. It couldn't happen. So he got stuck in limbo while in limbo. That's pretty weird.
That is.
Go King.
God.
There over the 27 years, there were many that I laughed at. But I think, honestly, pound for pound, some of the funniest moments that I had was Reverend Faircloth. And the one that comes to mind is Paris Hilton. And my favorite moment, Brian was doing just what he was talking about. We had a script in front of us, and Brian was doing Reverend Faircloth, and he would, when he felt it, he would go off. He would leave and start going wherever he wanted to go. I would put my finger on where we were on the script, and he would go do his thing. And the reason I had to hold my finger there was because I love that character so much, and he would make me laugh so hard that if I didn't keep my finger pressed on it, I couldn't because when Brian was ready, he would look at me, and that meant get me back. So I would look where my finger was and take it right back. But Reverend Faircloth was kind of born, I can tell you, from an Atlanta Falcons football game on a Monday night. The head coach, Dan something, they won the game, and they asked him, so, you won the game. What do you think? And he spent, a lot of them. I want to thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. He went for a minute on his Lord and Savior Jesus Christ on Monday Night Football. And it started there, because the next day he came in, and that's really where it grew from.
Well, and let me say this in all seriousness. I got to sit across from a guy for over 25 years that was a great sense of humor, radio experience out the butt. In fact, his butt will tell you. I mean, he had all this. I mean, I got to sit across from this guy, but along with everything else he brought to the table, and I don't think anyone would disagree with me, the all-time most contagious laugh on the planet. Yep. Now, the reason I bring this up is because if I'm doing a Reverend Faircloth, or I'm doing this character, and he starts getting tickled, not just laughing at where he's supposed to laugh, but laughing in other places, that it just inspired me. The ham, I'm just such a big ham, and I just go places then, just trying to get him to laugh harder and laugh harder and laugh harder. And most cases, those are some of my favorite sketches, whether it's Elvis or Reverend Faircloth or whoever, just because that's what I was doing. And also contagious laugh. If you remember, if you're listening to this podcast, so you know a lot about Rita, she had the most contagious laugh also. when she got tickled, it wasn't like a cute little kind of fun. It was like,
oh yeah,
Or yeah.
And so did Frank Sontag.
Yep.
When he got tickled, he went up and into the high registers. He would laugh. The dogs could hear him. That was, and what a joy! How lucky am I? How blessed? How fortunate am I to work with such exquisite people and just have such a great time for year after year after year. And as my father once said, I never forgot this, and I felt so fortunate because it came true. He said, it's always better to have a job where you get to say, I get to go to work today, not I have to go to work.
Sure.
And I said that every single day.
Yeah.
There was one other, because when Brian and I spent that night sitting up talking, and we decided we wanted to do that job together in Birmingham, one of the things that we connected on was that we both dearly loved the first album from Steve Martin. And we dearly loved David Letterman. And at that point, Letterman was just starting. And the key to both of them was that it was stupid. It was stupid stuff, stuff that didn't matter. And I went into work one morning and Brian says to me, dude, and this was in the coffee room, getting coffee. It's 5:30. He goes, dude, I got something really, really stupid today. So just hang in. And I would always go, great. And he gives me the script and there it is. And I'm looking at it. I'm all three callers in this script. And as it turned out, I just was trying to hang on to get to it. And this is smacking that ass.
Oh, God.
This fucking thing was why? What is that? It was, I lost my shit with that. And like I said, I'm the callers three. And when I'm first looking at the script, I've got three different voices that I'm going to do, and it's good. And then he started that smacking that ass shit. I could barely speak the English language, much less use voices. And we were lucky to get through it, or I was.
So many times.
Yeah, the dumb shit is just gold. Look, Letterman, Jay Thomas, God rest his soul. Every year, it was a tradition. And speaking of stupid, Letterman had a Christmas tree with a giant meatball, a real size of a basketball meatball. And it was tradition. Jay Thomas come back on the show and they would take turns on NFL football at the meatball. The one to hit it is the winner. Why? But I was riveted to it. It's stupid shit. And it was that was king for me any day, every day, all day. Bring it.
One of the things that we always learned in radio is that dead air is the worst thing you could ever hear, except when you guys would be laughing so hard that there was actually silence for about 5 or 10 seconds. And then
it's true.
All of a sudden that slight wheeze would start creeping back in and then the laugh would continue. But that 10 seconds of silence was actually the most brilliant dead air that we've ever heard.
That was the loudest silence you would ever hear because I was gone. It could be any moment about anything, anywhere, at any time. But in most cases, and I say this with love, I was laughing at Brian, not with, at. And I would just lose my mind. And you're right. It was really, really loud silence.
And I will tell you, and I learned this from all the years of doing improv in Chicago, the audience will know that you're tanking even sometimes before you do. So the best thing to do is not try to hide it. Just say, this is not working out, and have fun with that. I mean, I think we were sometimes at our best when a sketch, a script, or a character didn't work, because we were very, very much loving the fact that we are sucking up the room on this particular idea. We thought it looked good on paper. We thought this was going to work, and it didn't. Where are you going to go? You can't just sit there and pretend like just to get through it and then move on. You have to deal with it. You have to accept and verbally show that, yep, we know it sucks.
And you were real. And that's what I think the listeners appreciated about you guys, is that even if it sucked, it's like, okay, we admit it sucked and we move on.
Yeah.
Well, I'll give you one. And if you look it up on YouTube, you can really enjoy this, because this was one of those moments where I just lost my mind on this one. The script was a Charlie Brown Halloween. And there was so much music and effects in it. It was long, and it was a lot of effects and a lot of different stuff. And so there was a certain tension because we did our stuff live. We didn't tape it, but live. And so we're doing it. And there was a part where Brian's got to do a voice on the phone. It's got to be on the phone. And so we're doing it. And Brian's
I had 19 characters in that.
Yeah, no, it was ridiculous. And that was the tension. There was so much to hit. And early on, it wasn't great. It was, I don't know, 1 foot behind. I never could figure it out. So we get to the part, phone now, gonna talk into the phone, Brian's character into the phone. He picks up the phone, he's talking into it, and the board op doesn't have the phone up. And Brian's holding the phone and he keeps talking into it. We can hear him through the mic, but not the phone. And then God love him, he finishes the line, not on the phone. And then as Brian sets the phone down, the phone was on and you could hear it land. I fucking lost my mind. It was all that tension and that the fuck. I was gone. I couldn't help anybody do anything forever.
And there's nothing like the Tim Connolly, Harvey Korman, breaking the fourth wall and laughing at each other, and that's what we did. And I would prefer that to happen because that we were enjoying. I think that came out. We enjoyed what we were doing so very much. It didn't sound like work. Mark, tell that story about what that listener said to you one time about do you have a day job or whatever it is?
Oh, he said it to us. To tell that story about that listener that has said to me.
That narrowed it down. That was great stuff.
All right, 1 second, because I know what you're talking about. So we were doing the show, and we just talked about the fun we would have. And a guy calls us, and we put him on the air, and he had another reason to call, but he said, so you guys have like an afternoon gig, right? And well, what do you mean? A job? You guys have an afternoon job? Because you do this for fun, for free. So you have a job, right? It was the biggest compliment. He really believed that we must have a job that pays us money because we don't get paid to do this. This is just a fun way to start our day. And what a compliment. We worked hours to make this show sound the way it sounds. And that's one of the biggest compliments you could ever get right there.
Absolutely.
And that was really kind of it. So,
tell him that story where the salesman said that one time. Tell him that one.
That'll narrow it down. You guys, such amazing. Or are you telling the story? I forget.
No,
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
Okay. I can't thank you enough for taking your time and talking about this. We shared so many fun times. You gave so much joy to the listeners. Not only joy, but man, you went through experiences like 9/11 and you endeared yourself to Southern California and then all your syndicated cities like, Portland and Albuquerque and all those other places, which were great. Mark, I've never heard a better storyteller than you on the radio.
Oh, you're nice.
And Brian, I've never met anybody funnier. You, to me, are in the realm of like a Robin Williams, a Steve Martin, just deadpan funny. And the fact that you've been a part of our lives for so long, it just means the world to me. And I'm so happy and proud of you that you got this recognition. So congratulations.
Nice of you. Thank you.
Kind words, Reach. Thank you very much, Woody.
Rita brought up 9/11. If you ask 100 Mark and Brian fans, what was the moment, Mark and Brian, that you think of the most? 9/11 comes up more than any other. And it's uniquely odd that here we are, a morning show that prides ourselves on bringing the giggle, and we're remembered greatly for that morning. And as tragic as it was, we were so out of our element because we were doing what all of you were doing, watching the television as this horrific thing unfolds. And I can vividly, we're watching something that you don't think you can see or that could happen. And I remember specifically saying, everybody remain calm. I was actually talking to myself, just calm, because we're on the air and we're having to try to make sense of this tragedy. And nobody can prepare you for as broadcasters. There's no class. There's no school that you can go to be thrust into a moment like that, that is so real and so scary and something that we all were dealing with at the same time.
And I think we both felt that, it's not work what we do. It doesn't feel like work. We have so much fun. But then that morning, like we had to step up a little bit, and, we had to be to our listeners what they needed at that moment.
Yeah.
And so we had to figure out a way to do it. And I remember, we were both, were struggling through it, but we tried to give our listeners some sort of, feeling that, they weren't alone and that we're all feeling the same thing. And I just remember after the show, I took off my headphones. Rita was program director at that point, and I walked to her office. She had a couch in there, and I sat down. I took a deep breath, and I started bawling, just bawling my eyes out, not saying anything. You had to be something on the air. That's what we got paid to do, to be something on the air, to do what we did. And when we're off the air that day, I'm not a crier. Mark will cry at a
Mark is crying.
but I always remember I sat in Rita's office and she didn't say anything. She just let me cry my eyes out. And then she stood up and gave me a huge hug. And I'll always remember that.
Speaking of me crying, he had money on me crying during the Hall of Fame thing with Laura, and Brian won it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
we
I'll
noticed.
say, I wasn't expecting, I don't know if you could hear it in my speech, but I wasn't expecting to get emotional like that. And it was right towards the end when I started thanking Laura, and then I got to Mark and said what I said. And then you could hear it in my voice. Like, if I hadn't held that together, I was about to lose it.
Yeah.
I was going to lose it. Luckily, it was by the end of the speech. And so I could take off my headphone and just kind of wipe the tears away from my eyes, because it was a moment that I'll never forget.
Yeah.
And to wrap up the 9/11 conversation, because none of us will ever forget it. For us, for all of us, 9/11 changed our lives. It changed our job. It changed the way we approached a show literally for the rest of the year. And I kind of held everything in check. I had kids. We had to talk about it. We all did. And at the Super Bowl that year, U2 was the halftime performance. And when Bono opened his jacket and the American flag was inside, that was when I lost it, was at that moment. So yeah, I'm always amazed at that being the show that so many people bring up that they remember. And it makes sense when you think about it. And when we were putting together the 90 seconds, it's so funny. We've been together for 27 years. We're going into the Hall of Fame, and they want our career together encapsulated in 90 seconds. And Stu Herrera, one of the great production guys. What an ass he is, but he knows it. And I tell it to his face. He had the job of putting it together, and he took a stab at the beginning. He threw in the funny, he threw in the big celebrity, and he threw in the heart. And that to him was what the show was. And we listened to the first take on it, and I thought it was strong. And I even said I could go with this. We then continued to listen to a bunch of different pieces of other stuff. We wound up going right back to that thing that he put together, because that's really what we were in my mind. We tried to bring the funny. We celebrated the great celebrities. Hell, we're living in Los Angeles. Why not? And then the heart. We're both genuine, living, walking, breathing people. And we love life and holidays and all of those things. And we tried really hard on a regular basis to bring that into the show. And that tape that we put together, or that Stu put together, encompassed that. And so very proud of what we did and the time that we did it, and the fact that we wound up being honored by the Radio Hall of Fame to kind of put a period at the end of that statement.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
I want to thank you guys for everything that you did. I appreciate all of your hard work. I appreciate the absolute comedy, and to be able to tune in every day to work with you guys. I know that there were times that I had to be the asshole to you guys, and I had to go to the lawyers.
Yeah, fuck you, CW.
And I had to, come back and say, this is why, we can't put a trampoline in the swimming pool and do this, and this or something. But You guys always kept me on my toes, and you allowed a promotion director or an assistant director, depending on when it was, that chance to expand what is normally done in a radio promotions. And the fact that we got to do anything from chick nights to dude nights to what would you do for Super Bowl tickets and things like that. I appreciate everything that you guys had to offer. I appreciate how much you had passion for the listeners. I think as much as Rita and I did, that we were probably all four of us were constantly battling the sales department and what had to be done. But, I truly love what you guys have and had, and it will go down in my memory for a long time. So thank you.
Nice words of you, C-Dub. And you talk about how much the listeners meant to you and meant to us. And I talked earlier about, if it's a charitable situation and there's a child that needs an operation, tell a classic rock crowd that you need it. I was at a KLOS event. For some reason, this pops into my mind. A KLOS event, a guy pulls up on his Harley, gets off, he's 400 pounds. He gets off and his ass crack is all the way down to the bottom of his knees.
Meaning he was 200 pounds and his ass crack is about 3 inches.
And he's got a Mark and Brian shirt on. And of course the shirt is up around his belly. And he had just given blood and a huge donation that he had raised from his motorcycle group. And I was touched as I saw him come out with the bandage, and then he put the $200 or $300. And I was just watching him walk back to his motorcycle. He knew who I was, and I was just standing there staring at him. And he turns around and he looks at me and he goes, "What the fuck are you looking at?" Gets on his bike and rode off. You gotta love that. That's the heart of it. And when you get out there and you see the true, genuine, heartfelt emotion that these people had for their classic rock and for life in general, you care. You get up every day, you do this as a job, but you give a shit about them. Because you met him and you see him and they come over and they want an autograph, and he's got his wife and his kids. And you work harder, you do more, because they are what they are.
And I can't believe you went so long with your speech, because you're so slight of word. But let me just add. No, all that's very, very true. Very, very true. But it's just kind of bring it back around and to say goodbye here. We hadn't been on the air for 7 years, and we got into the Radio Hall of Fame. And I don't think either one of us knew this when we left KLOS, that you're supposed to be on the air when you try to get into the Hall of Fame. The company you work for backs you, the studio backs you, you have all this promotion going on. We didn't know that. I honestly thought it was like the NFL, where you had to be out a certain number of years and then you qualify. So when Laura, a couple of years ago, contacts us, switchboarder Laura, and says, "We're going to try to get you in the Radio Hall of Fame," I'm like, "Oh, cool." And then she tells me, "You're up against, when we were nominated, you're up against all these people that are still on the air."
Yeah.
How did we get nominated then? Because your listeners, they're so dedicated years later, years since we've been on the air, they are so incredibly dedicated that the groundswell that was built, that started with Laura and you, Rita, and the listeners backed us. They voted on us. They tweeted, they social media'd their asses off to help get this done. And that if I'm to say I'm most thankful for or proud, is I'm proud that the listeners would go to that trouble 7-8 years later to get us into the Radio Hall of Fame. That is just a magnificent thing to do. And I'll always be grateful. I'm getting emotional again.
Yeah.
Wow.
Rita, I'm sure that you know of this. CW, you may not. This will always mean something. The Radio Hall of Fame 2020 induction ceremony booklet, the program, you opened it up. The first page is a gold page. It says, congratulations on your induction into the Radio Hall of Fame. Hooty hoo. There's a picture of us, Mark and Brian under, and it says, thank you, the listeners. The gold background, if you look closely, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of names of listeners that donated money on a GoFundMe page to buy this ad.
Wow, isn't that great?
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's beyond great. And that will always mean the world to both of us.
I mean, I would have liked just the money. I don't think we needed an ad.
Money would be good.
Wanted to send us the money, that would have been fine. But
well, I mean,
feel nice.
Usually we joke, but now we're not really working a lot, and money would be good if you could contact Rita and just a donation of some sort.
If you liked anything we ever did,
right?
Right. Laura's going to set that up, okay?
Yeah.
Not me. Laura's going to set that up.
No. Rita, at CW, thank you so much for having us on. And I'm sure you were planning on it being, 15, 20 minutes?
About 10, really.
No.
10, was that?
But then we knew Mark had a speech, so then that shot about 9 minutes.
Right. I know. And that's kind of what our show was, though. Honestly, we would, as you guys know, we would take, we were supposed to take a commercial break every 10 minutes or so. And there were days where we just didn't want to.
Couldn't get around to it.
Didn't get around to it. And so at the top of the hour, we played 20 minutes of commercials because we didn't play them in the last hour. So this is sort of exemplary of what our show was about. But to you two, you both mean so much to me, and not so much to Mark, but to me. And
true, though.
And you, no, you
It is true.
You're very, very kind.
Don't worry, we learned early.
Kind to have us on the show.
Wait, I gotta point something out. Brian's going, we love you both, and I went, me not so much. And got a giggle, and then Brian tried to cover up. No, he's kidding there. Absolutely hysterical.
I had to, otherwise I'd get letters. What is it? Does Mark not like you? He sounded like he was friends with CW there, and I don't want to have to answer those letters.
Yeah, you guys.
Rita, again, I meant what I said.
Thank you.
I am going to be as supportive, and I do anything in my power to help get you into the Radio Hall of Fame, my darling.
Well, thank you so much. That's very kind of you, but you both definitely deserve it. There were a lot of people that worked on the show that, we didn't mention, but we all thank them because they helped make it what it was. And, they know who they are. And thank you so much to all of them.
Well, let's take a minute and remember the Johnny Vega years. Let's talk about those because
What's Johnny doing now?
I have. Well, you know what? I did. One day I looked him up, and he is the CEO of some. Yeah, go ahead. Of some. I'm sorry, but I think they represent entertainment in some form. I don't remember, but he is alive and working.
But we've talked for a long, long time when we're just now getting around to Johnny Vega.
Yeah.
Right.
One quick thing, then it's just with you. A lot of people on social media and their posts with "Be Good Humans." You got to hear that.
Of course. I wouldn't have finished this without it.
All right.
What was it again?
Mark's an asshole.
No, I finished my speech, of course, on Thursday night with it, and I dedicated the trophy to the listeners. I said, thank you for letting us be a small part of your life and being such a huge part of ours. This is for you. Thank you, and be good humans. And I truly meant that.
It works now.
There you go.
Okay.
You got some words of encouragement, Mark, for people in the pandemic?
No, I
Okay.
can't wait to get out of this shit. Good God. I haven't. This is what hair looks like when you haven't
like
had a haircut since January. But Linda brought this up to me just the other day. Somebody, Brian ends every show with "Be good humans." Somewhere at some point, and
Well, he tried to, but you kept going.
Right. And somebody said, "Mark, don't you have anything that you want to end the show with?" And I said, "Yeah, wave at people in cars." Driving home that day, a guy waved at me on the freeway saying bye. So that is my encouragement. As you deal with the pandemic, wave at people in cars.
Nice. All right.
All right, guys.
Guys, love you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time and all of it. And love you and happy holidays. Have fun. Love you both.
Be good
Thank
humans.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys. So, like you said before, but it was a nice walk down memory lane talking about all that stuff.
Yeah, and like all the Christmas stuff, that they used to do on their shows and stuff since we're around that holiday season now. They just always used to get me so inspired with the holidays and stuff.
Elvis.
And the Christmas show, Elvis. Oh.
I loved Elvis.
I love Elvis.
I love the Christmas shows. I didn't like working the Christmas shows, but I liked it was so much stress, and it was so early in the morning that I think we had to get there like at 2 a.m. And it was, by the time the show even began, we're like done.
It was insane.
But,
it was insane.
But it was
what
great.
What the hell were we doing?
I don't know, but it was great. So
our special thanks to Mark Thompson and Brian Phelps, and a special thank you to switchboarder Laura Stringer for coordinating the interview. You can listen to Mark and Linda's show at www.M&L studios.com.
That's MANDL studios.com.
Thank you.
Just to clear.
Follow Mark on Facebook at Mandel Studios, M&L. Spell it out, capital M-A-N-D and capital L Studios. Follow Brian on Twitter at Brian W. Phelps.
The boys also talked about their good friend Scotty Page. And for those of you that just tuned in for the Mark and Brian show, Rita and I have a bunch of other rock and roll shows. One of them does include Scott Page. So make sure you check it out. Subscribe to our podcast and rate us and write a review if you don't mind. And check out the one with Scotty and all our other friends that we've been chatting to over the last year.
Yeah, so where can they find that?
They can find the interviews on our website, again at rockandrollconfessional.rocks, or just go to Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Music, type it in, find it, go for it. And go to our website to check out our show notes, because there you can find some interesting tidbits of stuff we talked about in today's show, including some really old photos, some rare photos that I dug up and I put up there. You can find those on our website. I was thinking about this as I was posting these photos. It's like we have all these photos, and yet back when, they were extremely highly popular, there was really no internet or anything. So much of this was just stuck in archives that was never used. So I think I found about 20 or 30 different things with, different celebrities that they were interviewing in events. So check those out. Those are on our website. And wherever you are, wherever you listen, wherever you are, even if you're out of the country, please rate, subscribe, write a quick review. It only takes a couple minutes, and it can really make our day and your day because you did something so nice to us. And go to Patreon and make a small pledge, okay? We appreciate it. We're not a nonprofit, but we don't make anything, so there you go. So, Reach, give us that fabulous, thick, well-thought-out trivia question again.
Where they from?
And the answer would be...
The answer is Mark is from Florence, Alabama.
Florence.
And Brian is from Cambridge, Illinois. That's where they from.
Jeez. On that note, we're wishing everybody a happy holiday season. We have some more great stuff coming up, so stay tuned, stay subscribed, and keep rocking.
We appreciate your support for it, and we know there's nothing else you can do during the pandemic, so we appreciate you listening to us.
All right, everybody. Take care. Happy holidays. Bye.
Where they from?